that in 2014 we were the 11th largest economy. We are today the 5th largest economy in the world. By 2027, we shall be the 3rd largest economy in the world, going ahead of Germany and Japan as well. We will be a $5 trillion economy by 2028, a $6 trillion economy by 2030. India is on its way, and India is on its way because in the last 10 years, not the incremental change that has come about, but the monumental change that's come about in India. A government led by Prime Minister Modi that has been focused on execution, focused on empowerment, focused on unleashing the power of every single Indian. And today, unlike what it used to be in my growing up years in the 70s and the 80s, where access to capital was really the main issue in terms of growth, today capital has become a commodity. It's new ideas, entrepreneurial capability that is powering individuals, powering companies, and powering nations. And we happen to have a huge amount of power there and potential there. We didn't have a single unicorn in our country 10 years ago. We have 118 unicorns. We have 140,000 startups today. And so much so that you have a government today, as was evinced in this budget, which is targeted close to about 10,000 crores for setting up an FFF, a fund of funds for the startup ecosystem. And mind you, that money can be leveraged 8x, 10x. So you're actually talking about a corpus of close to 100,000 crores for startups in India. So India is on her way because of the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. You need to create that landscape which has been done in India. The fact that over 10 years, you had 74 airports. Today you have close to 160 airports. You had 90,000 kilometers of national highways. Today you have close to 150,000 kilometers of national highways. The monumental change that this country has seen. Today the execution capability in India is way beyond any advanced economy in the world. And that combination of government and the private sector, enterprise and entrepreneurial capability, is unparalleled in the world. And I have all the confidence that our growth rate, and I am not, as an economist, by background, I am not interested in a 10%, 9%, 8% growth rate that remains a blip. The beauty about transformation, Navika, is about CAGR. It's about the compounded annual growth rate. Why the US today has become the world's largest economy is because the US didn't grow at 10% or 15%, but the US grew at 3.5% for 100 years. That's the power of compounding. And that's the power of compounding that today India is experiencing. We have grown over the last 10 years at a 7% CAGR decadal growth rate. And that's the reason why we've been able to lift 25 crore people in India above the poverty line. Our youth dividend. I always say we have a democratic dividend, but we also have a demographic dividend. 70% of India is below the age of 35. That's 98 crore people, 980 million people, 3 times the population of the United States of America, twice the population of combined Europe. That's our capability. And I believe that India will become the center of not only economic growth, but the center of innovation. And it is innovation that powers nations.
Let me ask you, Mr. Scindia, the fact that
Could you and I ever dream that we'll be setting up fabs in India? Today in India, we're not setting up a fab. We're setting up multiple fabs. And fab is the seminal part of growth of new kinds of paradigm innovations in the world. You got a fab being set up in Assam, 40,000 crores. You got a fab being set up in Gujarat. Could we ever dream that Airbus will set up a final assembly line in India? You got C-295s now being produced in India, in Vadodara. The Aquarel helicopters are going to be produced in India. We're the second largest market in the world for mobile phones. We're the third largest market in the world for telecom. That's where India is headed today.
You said in the past, as the telecom minister, that in 4G we followed the world, in 5G we walked with the world, and in 6G you're going to lead the world. Can you take our audiences through the blueprint of what you're planning on 6G?
So just to give you an analogy, if you go back to the US of the 1900s, right? And what the Vanderbilts did and what the JP Morgans did in those days was build out the physical infrastructure. They built out the railroads, they built out the highways. And the Industrial Revolution took off on the basis of that physical infrastructure being built. Today, in modern day, in the global arena, we no longer have a physical highway. We have a digital highway. And that digital carriageway is the most advanced today in India. You know, we built out, and I take my hats off to our TSPs, our telecom service providers, our telcos. We built out the fastest 5G rollout in the world. 22 months, 99% of India's districts, 82% of India's population was covered. The fastest 5G rollout. That digital highway today is doing what? It's transforming India. Because what that digital highway does is that it makes opportunity ubiquitous. It creates a level playing field. It creates inclusivity. It creates equity. So what my farmer can do in Madhya Pradesh, or my agarwood grower in Assam or Tripura, or my queen pineapple grower in Tripura, can do the same thing that what people in Bombay and Delhi and Chennai and Bengaluru and Kolkata can do. It creates a level playing field. And the fact today that you have, because of that, 46% of the world's digital transactions, happening in India. 46%. You're talking about 172 lakh crore. Can you imagine the number of zeros in that? That's the volume, that's the amount of rupees being exchanged digitally in a year in India. 150 lakh crore transactions. That capability is because of the digital highway. But what the Prime Minister thought is that while we create that digital highway, I don't want India to be only a service nation. India must translate into a product nation. And so